All right, man. So the new record, American Spring, man, it's out next month. It's out in a couple weeks, very beginning of May, man. Tell me what this album means for you guys and means to Anti-Flag.
Well, I think that it's a tremendously important record for us for a few reasons. I think that first being it the first record after our 20th anniversary as a band, and that kind of puts a lot of pressure on us when writing these songs to even take the challenge of putting out a new record. You know, I think that when you've been a band this long, we are in a fortunate position where we could tour much of the world and live well in our hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the cost of living is relatively cheap, and we could go and tour Europe and tour many places around the States and just play songs from Die for the Government or The Terror State or For Blood and Empire, tentpole records in our band's career, if you want to call them that, and we'd be okay. So to take on the task of putting out a 10th record in 20 years as being a band, I think that we really wanted to make sure that we were more focused than ever and that we were more diligent than ever in not just creating a record of songs that commented on the social and political landscape in 2015, but a collection of songs that when we looked back on the commentary of this time, we could say that we were on the right side of humanity, we were on the right side of standing up to injustice. And I truly believe that this is a record that is going to last a lot longer than Anti-Flag does as a band, and I think it's because of that work and because of us just paying attention to the fact that this will be an important one for us for years to come.
Yeah, you guys have always, kind of, carried the flag as far as, political, views in your music. Obviously, Terror State, one of the biggest records of all time. 10 records in, 20 years into it as a band, do you feel like it's gotten easier to write, songs along those lines, or does it get harder as times go? Because there's always going to be some sort of influence and motivation to write something.
Yeah. Well, this record in particular was extremely difficult for me personally to write. I was in a really a new headspace whenever writing these songs, and I think that a lot of that comes through in specifically my songs on the record, where you can tell that I was viewing them through a new pair of glasses and viewing the issues of the day through new eyes, and that all comes with self-identity and kind of a recognition or crisis therein of self-identity, where I was in a relationship for 17 years, the entire time I've been in this band, and then when we started writing these songs, I was no longer in that relationship. So I was coming from a more emotional place, and I think we all got into punk rock and we all got into the counterculture and we all got into these ideas because we have an overabundance of empathy in our lives, and that's why you find so many people involved in these scenes who are vegetarian or vegan because they care about more than just themselves, or they fight against racism or sexism or homophobia, bigotry that might exist at your high school, but when you go to a punk rock show or you go to your community space, none of that stuff exists. So already being someone who is more open to that empathy, I think that more than ever, I was not just trying to comment on it and trying to say, like, hey, these things that are happening, the barrage of images that we see of Mike Brown's death and Eric Garner's death and Scott in North Carolina. These things aren't just happening on a television screen. These are happening in real life, and these are people that are losing their lives, and these are families that are devastated, and until we can have true empathy for those people and their situation, we're going to continue to allow these mistakes and missteps to happen. So I think that, it maybe was more difficult to do that than ever because I was more emotional and more distraught and more upset by by these things that were happening, and I found the best way to deal with that was to write these songs and is to be in this band, because it is a shot in the arm of optimism whenever we get to play these songs live and we get to go on tour and meet people who have dedicated their lives to more than just caring about having a really nice car or, you know, whatever shit they're told to buy.
Right, and I mean, going through everything that obviously you went through a hell of a time, you know, during the writing process and for this record. I mean, all the emotion that goes into everything that went into this record. Do you think that made for maybe a better product in the end? Because it's harder while you're going through it, but now you have the final product of the record, and you think that kind of
and I think that you know. Each of us in the band has gone through our own personal anguish or missteps or misfortune while making Anti-Flag records. You know, it's a very difficult thing that we do, to be in a band for this long, to play as many shows a year as we play, and not just keep things together at home, but keep things in your life in order, keep yourself feeling sane, and especially in a band that's commenting on a lot of the woes of history, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by it all, and to feel as if things aren't getting much better, and why don't we just hang it up and allow someone else to take over and worry about ourselves for a bit, you know, not worry about the collective so much. So I do think that we have enough of a history and enough reference points to see that these moments in our lives that seem to be all-encompassing and seem to be bigger than anything else we've dealt with, we do know those tend to be really important ones when making art and when trying to capture a time frame or capture a piece of history and comment on it. So I think that we were well aware that this would lead to a very important record for us if we stuck it out, and I think that's why we worked as hard on the songs on American Spring, and you know, we wrote this record over a 2.5-year period, and really bet on ourselves. We wrote and recorded the entire record on our own dime, out of our own pocket. We did the artwork with a friend here in town, and we had the entire thing done before we even played it for any record label, and that was really important for us. We didn't want anyone but our own noses in this record. We wanted it to be an Anti-Flag piece, start to finish. And not to say that, you know, when you're on a Side One Dummy or a Fat Records that they're like overseeing and meddling with it, but you want camaraderie, and you want people that are working on these things with you to be as invested emotionally as they are maybe financially. So sometimes someone will say like, oh, no, maybe just play this one time, or maybe it should sound like this, or maybe you should write a song about this. And you entertain that because you want to be a kind person, not because they're saying if you don't change this, I won't release your record, but you want to make sure that everybody feels good about it. So for us, it was really important to make this record on our own without any outside influences, because we knew it was going to be really important for our band's history.
Right, and obviously, you know, Spine Farm is a great label for it to come out on. You guys also worked with Kenny from AWOL Nation on this record. He co-produced it. What was it like working with him for this one?
Kenny is really great because he has such an important sense of modern sounds and such a good assessment of ways to make things feel cohesive and as a piece, and as he's really good at pushing you into the sonics of the song. So we were trying to do like dichotomies, you know, because a lot of the issues on the record are heavy, and that doesn't mean that the song needs to be as dark and as moody as maybe some of the subjects we are covering. So we were trying to be cognizant of balancing that, and in writing songs that were not all in minor keys or all with heavy breakdowns or all too punk and too fast or too whatever. We wanted to make sure that there was a landscape of sounds, and Kenny was really good at doing that. And the other really important part about Kenny is he is an Anti-Flag fan, and his favorite records are Terror State and Underground Network, and he's cognizant of our history as a band. So in the past, when we worked with producers, we've worked with people that never really listened to us or heard us, and we were working with them because of other records that they had worked on, you know, and they tend to care less about your history and making sure that you're preserving some parts of what got you here. And Kenny was really good about being like, yo, that stokes me out the way this song did, and he would have real reference points too, and that was cool for us because we wanted it to sound like an Anti-Flag record. We wanted it to be obviously new and modern and pushing ourselves to be a better band, but we also knew that there's a reason that people listen to Anti-Flag records, and we wanted to stay true to that.
Well, it's good that he's a fan of Anti-Flag and knows the band, because, I mean, a lot of times you come in, you start working with a producer, and they kind of want to change it to what they're comfortable with, what they know, and with Kenny being an AWOL Nation, they're two completely different ends of the spectrum as far as sound, and listening to the record, it is an Anti-Flag album, so it keeps the essence of what Anti-Flag is all about.
Yeah, but he's so technologically savvy, and you know that comes through a lot on the AWOL stuff. That he was able to introduce some of that to us, and I think a good example of that is "Song for Your Enemy." That's a song that's got some drum parts to it that Pat would never play, but Kenny being like, "No, man, this will be a new spin on the sonics of Anti-Flag," and really pushing us to try something different. That was a song that really worked out and really rounded out because of a lot of the influence of Kenny.
Awesome, man. You guys recently did the Terror State anniversary tour, and you guys actually stopped here in Indy at the Emerson. Had a chance to check that show out, which was just insane. Stage divers and all that stuff. It was fun. Looking back on that tour, and then also that time of the band making that record, how was that tour for you guys?
Well, the tour was really important, especially now with looking towards American Spring. I think it was tremendously influential in the way we were writing and the work ethic of the band, because it put us back in the frame of mind that we were in 2003, and I think that's where we really decided upon and defined the sound that Anti-Flag would become. And so to get back in touch with that by playing those songs was really important to making this new record. It was also the first time we worked with an outside entity, in, you know, Tom Morello being the producer of Terror State. So Tom and Kenny, I think that their inputs were very similar, where they challenged some of the rhythms of the band. They challenged some of the musicianship of the band. You know, they put a lot of faith in our ability to write political leaning songs. They knew that would come, but they wanted to make sure that those ideas were demonstrated in the best ways possible. So I think Terror State is, if not the most important, one of the most important moments of Anti-Flag's life, and to go back and see that those songs still carry weight and people still connect with them, it was really important for us to do.
Awesome. Yeah, it was just a fun show to watch. I mean, being able to see a lot of those songs live for me for the first time was just...
Yeah, well, for some of them, we had only played the 6 or 7 times we've played the record now. So
was it hard to go back and like probably relearn some of those songs and go back and listen to them maybe even for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been years since we dusted off some of those chords, and you know, like I said, there was some in particular that we absolutely never played live until we did the record start to finish. So, there was a lot of learning that went on.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I wanted to talk about is obviously next year we've got the big big election coming up, and with obviously the political views of the band and everything. How do you feel about the possibility of another like Bush-Clinton election possibly coming?
Well, I think that they're not even trying to hide the dynasty era politics anymore. Yeah, and I think that I'm hopeful that people will just catch enough wind of it and say, this is fucked up. This isn't democracy. This is Coke and Pepsi, and we're choosing between these two people who have been in charge of our lives for the last 3 decades, and this is unacceptable. It's not democracy, and we need to start anew. And I hope that that'll make way for third and fourth party candidates, because that's the only way we're going to get true democracy. You have to be a millionaire to become an elected official in America. And until that changes, until corporate money is taken from the political landscape in America, we're going to continue on this trajectory that we're on, which is sacrificing the poor, sacrificing those that have very little for a very few that have a lot.
Yeah, I just feel like if it does come down to a Bush or Clinton election, and regardless who gets in, I feel like somebody that's not the president is going to be, at least have a hand in what's going on. You know, whether it be Bill or George or something. And the president isn't really going to be completely running everything. I mean, and maybe they're not, maybe he's not right now too. But I feel like it may not be a great idea.
Well, I think it's counterintuitive to the ideals of a democracy. You know, the reason that we have this structure of electing people every 4 years is so that we don't get on this endless escalator of the same people, and we're not in a dynasty and we're not in a monarchy. I think that this is obviously a loophole in the system, having families run the way they're running. Would it be exciting to see the first woman elected president? Absolutely. It was very exciting to see the first African-American man elected president. I think that those things should be applauded, and we should be pushing ourselves to be more progressive. And, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing the first elected transgender president. You know, if the ideas are correct, you know, then let's go for it. But what frustrates me is that, you know, Hillary is obviously the leading candidate right now, and I would be remiss if I didn't say that it felt wrong to keep this trajectory of Bush Clinton, and then, you know, what happens after Hillary's term? Are the Obama daughters young enough to run or old enough to run at that point? I don't know. Yeah.